Welcome. This is the town of Readfield's Meet the Candidates Night for 2023. It's actually not a Meet the Candidates, Hear the Candidates, because we aren't going to actually shake any hands yet. But we are going to hear from them, and we have some questions that they've been sent in advance, as well as questions we may take from the floor. Basically, the process will be that each candidate will have a couple minutes to give some personal information about themselves, why they're running, for example, where they live and things like that. I know we have some incumbents and we have some new, so that'll be interesting. The first panel is the select board candidates. There are 3 here tonight running for select board, and I think there are 2 positions open. So you can listen for issues that you think would decide your view on which candidate to vote for when the time comes. My name's Doug Stevenson. I'm happy to be your facilitator, moderator. This is not town meeting. We don't use town meeting rules, but we do try to observe respect for each other. Generally, you have 2 or 3 minutes to answer questions. We'll rotate the questions starting with Carol, and then each time we'll start a new question, we'll move down one. So Carol, you don't have to be the first every single time. It's too easy to say I agree with her and go on or don't agree. That. Yeah. So any questions about process from you? Or from the floor? I believe that Eric is keeping track of comments that may be recorded online. I can't see the screen to see how many people are online, but if you are online and have a comment or a question you want submitted, there's a place to type on the side. Is that right, Eric?
Yes, comment box.
A comment box. So I think you're all more familiar with your process than I am. So type in, and Eric at some point will summarize or recombine or somehow give us your questions so you can get your question answered here tonight. We'll take the select board candidates first. Not sure how long this is going to take, but we've allowed not more than an hour. And then we'll do the school board, which is second. There are 2 candidates, I believe, for school board. Any questions about that? Okay, great. Thank you, Carol. Thank you all for being willing to stand as a candidate for a really important town function, that Board of Select Board member. A lot of work to be done in a small town like this. So Carol, I'll start with you, and you can give us any background you'd like for a couple minutes, and then we'll move on to Sean.
Sure. I'm Carol Dorenbos, and I'm originally from the Midwest, but we bought a fixer-upper 2 doors down with an iron fence 28 years ago, so that must count for something. I also have 2 daughters that we're very proud of that are Marana Cook graduates. Way back when they were starting school, I served on the school board for a couple of terms. It was around the time of the RSU forming, so that was a very turbulent, interesting time. I am a pharmacist by trade. I was a retail pharmacist for many, many years. And good thing, because my husband was a chemical engineer in paper and got downsized on his 40th birthday. So as a pharmacist in a time where there was a great shortage, I could work lots and lots of overtime. And one time, I think for 3 different companies, like full-time for 1 and part-time traveling for 2, to pay local contractors to fix up our house. So we made a big commitment. Just in the last 2 years, we've opened our Iron Fence Inn on Airbnb with 4 guest rooms, which has been an exciting endeavor. I also work and volunteer with veterans, nonprofit organizations on the board of directors at a women veterans homeless shelter in Augusta called Sister in Arms. I'm also very active in our local Methodist church in Kents Hill and at Jesse Lee. I'm a lay leader and also head of hospitality. So I have a lot of things that keep me busy all the time. And I think that's all that I'm going to say for right now.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Sean, anything you can tell us about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Sean Keegan. Carol has me beat for a few years. My wife and I also bought a fixer-upper in Readfield on the Sadie Dunn Road, and have been working on that for 16 years, and we're back to the first room again, I think, now, to make that look nice again. We have 3 kids that are all part of the RSU district. My wife is a kindergarten teacher at the Readfield Elementary School. I've been volunteering in town for 10 years now. I can't believe that, to say that out loud. So started as a rec soccer coach, did other terrible coaching things because I wasn't very good at it, but I was around to help out when I could. And I was the treasurer for the rec board for a number of years before my first stint on the select board. My family's pretty important to me. Pretty happy to be involved in their lives through either volunteering at school events or just being able to get to the school whenever I can for any activities that are going on. We started a business just this year, actually. So we're running our own maple syrup business too in town, which was pretty exciting. It was an interesting year to get going with that. But so between running the farm and working, I also adjunct as faculty at the University of Maine at Farmington in the Rehab Services and program. In my daily life, I am a regional director for vocational rehabilitation for the state of Maine. So what we do is we assist individuals with a variety of disabilities or barriers to engage in employment services throughout the state for anyone age 14 to, well, whenever you want to stop working, really. So, and I think that's the easiest version of me I can think of for now.
Okay, thank you. Jared?
So my name is Jaron Shaw. I'm a lifelong member of the Readfield community. I graduated from Marana Cook, and then I spent a decade working as a lobsterman in Penobscot Bay. And then after that, I spent another decade teaching martial arts, mostly to special needs students locally. And in between, I did odd jobs in the computer and tech space, website design, computer repair, that sort of stuff. And currently I own and operate a couple small businesses in town. So, been here a long time, I guess.
Great, thank you. So we'll start with Sean, since we started Carol in the first round. And the question generally is, why do you want to do this? What's the goal that you have for serving the community in the role of select board member?
Thanks. Yeah, so I've always been someone that gets really invested in my life, where I live, what I do. And, you know, since settling our roots here in Readfield, I've really enjoyed engaging in a number of different projects, whether it be youth projects or working, helping out the library or anything like that. I felt that I was at a couple of meetings a month almost here for a variety of things. And at the time, 3 years ago when I first ran, I thought, okay, a better chance to get my voice heard and get the voice of my peers out there quicker was to be on the board. And that was not what I want to do now. I think what is exciting for me now is that over the last 3 years, I've learned a lot more about the intricacies of our municipal services and how we operate and engage with the public. And, there's been a lot of good things done, a lot of good things said, and a lot of projects underway or mentioned. And my thoughts are that it's important to just do everything really well and get them finished. And I really want to support, the work of our town manager and other committees and public members that have shared experiences or things that they want for town, and just really share that from this seat moving forward.
Okay, Jared, same question. Why do you want to do this? And do you have any specific goals you'd like to work toward?
So I've been volunteering the last few years on a couple committees, specifically conservation enterprise committees. And I feel like I could do more to aid the town. So select board seat came up, so I thought I'd run and see if the town's interested in having me. Happy to do it. If not, that's fine too, but I want to serve the community. And the volunteer hours I'm putting in right now is less than it could use me.
Oh, I'm sorry, less than what you want or less than what you'd like?
Less than it could be.
Okay, less than could. Okay, great. It's important to have great volunteers. Carol?
The reason I'm serving is back in 1996, Down East Magazine had an article, Lost in Time, Maine's Abandoned Homes. And our home happened to be one of 6 that was highlighted as Maine abandoned homes. We went through a grocery store line and I was like, that's a house we're trying to buy. They're not going to write it off, that it's of, no value. So we took some plywood off the windows. We started mowing the lawn. We spray painted a sign that said, come help new owners clean up. And about 20 local volunteers just showed up with rakes. Larry Perkins with this big tractor and a lift, cleaned the property, cleaned out, filled a dumpster. And ever since, the town has been very supportive of what we've done. They continue to be supportive in our new Airbnb, the Iron Fence Inn. So it's our time to give back. When my daughters were in the school, we were active then. They're off doing their own thing. So I have a little bit more time to focus on other local business. Also, as a pharmacist, I interact with a big crossroads of different people of different lifestyles. And at the VA, a veteran who actually is a local called and needed a prescription filled. And I said, what about your inhaler? You haven't gotten that for several months. He said, I have to pay for my oil. I can't pay for that. And that's reality. And I see that all the time. And also through the comprehensive plan, one thing that we did learn was 60% of the residents in Readfield are of retirement age or fast approaching that age. And I think we need to watch expenditures because times have been tough. There are people out there that are really having a challenge making ends meet. So I have 4 goals. Sensible spending, meaning spend it wisely, get the bang for our buck, do the things that we need and things that are good for the community in the long run, promote small business, increase communication with residents, and all residents treated fairly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so Jared, we'll start with you. The next question, it has to do with what you want to communicate. It has to do with getting people to participate in the election, actually, even though it's not written that way. So is there something that you see needs to be done in Readfield to increase the number of people who participate in the election so that you get a good turnout to make good decisions?
I think everyone in the room would love to see that, and I'm open to suggestions. I watched last 5 or 6 years, everybody were on YouTube, and I never got an answer that I felt was satisfactory or actually came to fruition. So I will happily steal anyone's idea in here that has a great way of getting more people to be involved in voting.
Do we know what the percentage of people that vote for town meeting candidates is?
30%.
I don't know exactly. We usually have between 800 and 1,000 a good year of presidential election, 1,200 plus, but usually I'd say 600 to 800 is the average for a municipal election.
Okay, so with,
Out of 2,500.
out of 2,500, that was what I was looking for. Okay. So we have a new bar, new threshold to reach. Okay, Carol, I'll turn to you about how do you plan to communicate or engage voters to participate in this election? There are other things besides the elections this year, but get them to participate in town government at the election.
I hope many people get involved and do vote. Your vote does make a difference. When I got elected in 2021, on the ballot, there were 12 items under capital improvements that totaled $900,000. Last year, we were very proactive in talking about the budget, and I think they heard us. This year, there's 7 items for $400,000. So we more than half cut the dollar amount in capital expenses. And also had them take out open space, which there's controversy of whether we need open space. Readfield has 12% of its land already devoted to open space. It's almost 2,500 acres, which is an acre for every man, woman, and child in town. Also, when you show up at meetings, we do listen. We made it loud and clear that we wanted basketball at the fairgrounds. We also, residents showed up in force and had a lot of input on the Church Road program. There was something called pretty much the Readfield Green New Deal that we did not pass, and I'm glad about that. The electric cars going back to the dealer when its term is up. So one person, one vote, and people showing up at meetings and letting themselves be heard does get acknowledged and does make a difference.
Okay, so rotationally, it comes back to you. I'm sorry, all of a sudden, but
I didn't answer that question.
oh, you didn't?
Oh,
Oh, you're correct. Thank you. You get a chance. You can have all the time you want.
Thanks.
This
not
has to
gonna
do with this is still on how to get people to participate in the elections and town business.
Yeah, so I think we do a pretty good job of our communication right now. And I think that our meetings are set up in a good structure that allows input and feedback. You know, we share our calendar for the budget cycle so early in the year, and we added some extra meetings this year to make sure we had some more public input. And I really appreciate how the current board has worked to do that. And for me, the thing I always talk about when I'm in the community, if anyone has questions, is I really talk about the open slots that we have on different boards and committees, because that is your first key too, is to getting in and being able to communicate with some other people. So I really hope people can see those opportunities and take those to serve on any number of the boards that or committees that are designed in our town to help input for our warrant articles and for those next steps.
Okay, Carol, now I'm back to you. Sorry. So this third question has to do with how to get people to participate in the governance. It's a little different than the previous question, which was getting them to participate in the elections. But how do you, maybe you feel it's fine, but with respect to people engaged in the business of the community, what are effective ways of increasing that if it's necessary?
I would say we need a nice broad spectrum of people on all committees. Some had a lot of people there for a while, but some fresh blood and a fresh perspective is important. Also, some of the items in capital expense kind of comes from some of the little committees. And they really need to come to vote and come to vote separately. So we don't have money going to projects that are nice to have sometimes. Oh, that's a great idea, but is it going to benefit the town as a whole? Is it money that we can afford to spend? Also, as far as communication, that was my challenge on the select board. I post a lot on social media, alerts. If people are not signed up for alerts or read the messenger every month, that's how they stay informed. Also, I started putting notifications up on the fire station sign because we don't have a neon sign in Readfield, and I know people don't really want that. So that's my attempt to let people know what's coming up so they can attend and they can listen and they can have a voice and be involved. And then on Church Road, I asked for at least 6 months, if not 9 months, to have the residents on Church Road heard about their input and their concerns, and kept being told we need the engineers to do their work, and kept asking and asking because residents were asking me. And finally, in February, we did have a hearing. There were engineering plans going down both sides of the road. We sat at Bill and Flo Drake's kitchen table and talked about Bill's concerns. And then we walked the road and it was rainy and there were a few of us. And we went up and down and we found, actually Virginia Parker came up with the idea of going halfway down the road on the Union Meeting side, crossing over and going up safely to the fairgrounds. So if you talk to the people early on before we spend a lot of money on professionals, I think that's key to get the input, for one, to see if there's some support, some concerns, like way ahead of spending tens and thousands of dollars on professionals first.
Okay, so Sean, you'll be next on the question is how do you increase public participation in governance making decisions?
Can you just repeat it? Sorry, I was just confused.
So how do you propose to increase, if increase is important, public participation in the business of the town?
Yeah, great. So I think something I talk about often is that Eric is a fantastic town manager. If you don't know that already, you're missing out because he's a great resource for anybody in this town to sit and listen to. But also I want to say that the current board is also a great voice to go and talk to, and that any one of them, I see three other people in this room that are on the board that aren't sitting at this table that are always willing to listen and pick up the phone or reply to an email about what it is they can be doing to support you or answer your questions. So I think to increase participation is just making sure people know that they do have a resource to talk to people.
Okay, and Jared, has to do with how do you increase public participation in the business of the community?
Yeah, I mean, it's how you get your voice heard. If you're not willing to participate, it's really hard to get your opinion out there. That's how you do it. You don't have to join me, as Sean mentioned. I have contacted most of the members on the select board. I've contacted the town manager several times. All of them are very responsive, and they listen. They may not always agree with me, and that's perfectly fine, but they at least hear my voice, and so I would encourage people to do so.
Okay, so we'll start with, I was going to ask Eric a question, but he ducked.
I told you he's a very good town manager.
Yeah, well, he took
knows
that and
when
then
to
he
exit.
took the compliment and went home with it, I guess. So we'll go on to the next question. In thinking about what's ahead for the community, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, what do you think, and I guess we'll start with Sean, what do you think are the big challenges ahead? There's always challenges, but what are the big ones coming up right now that we need to be thinking of, planning for, raising money for, communicating with? Challenges.
So I think one thing that we talked about in the last year in our retreat is how we're engaging other areas and people within our that affect our budget. And so when I talk about, you look at our budget for this year and you look at the increases and where they sit, such a small portion is municipal. And so I think our important conversations is to continue to be in there and being a voice at the school board meetings or being an advocate for any changes in process they've got going on, and being a part of that plan that they're developing. And I think it's also important to make sure that we're talking to Joe Petrowski, we're talking to our county commissioner about what do they see coming? Because right here, we can only control such a small pot of it. When it's every dollar you spend, we're only 12 cents of that is to serve in your municipal budget. So that other 88 cents, I think we have to have a bigger voice at the table too, and making sure we're talking to folks about that.
Okay, Jared, anything about what you see as a big challenge or opportunity for the community in the next 2 to 5 years?
So I guess I would go to the open space. The open space committee was just voted on to be formed. It hasn't been formed yet. I'd very much like to serve on that. I've done a lot of research for it ahead of time. And there's a couple of properties there that worth mentioning. The Readfield Beach is an open space. I think most residents really enjoy the Readfield Beach, especially if they don't already own waterfront in town. The fairgrounds, which is currently considering some sort of development to be used as more sports field. That's another area where if the town didn't look ahead, it wouldn't even be an option. We wouldn't be having the conversation. So we'll see if the residents decide to move that forward or not, but it's not even something that would be on the table if it didn't come through open space. And then one that I think is a lot of confusion. I hear some people saying there's nowhere to hunt in town, but the town farm and forest, actually, there's a huge block of land there. And I see hunters up in there all hunting season, all residents, everyone who has a hunting license in the state is allowed to hunt up in there. So that's another forward-thinking aspect of the residents of the town going and saying, hey, here's an open space. We could use it for someone who doesn't have a back 40 to go hunt, or we could use it for some ball fields, or we could use it for a place for our kids to swim, who aren't fortunate enough to have their own private waterfront. So.
Okay, thank you. Carol, challenges or opportunities you see? You've been at this a while. The new things that you see haven't been resolved yet.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is a lot of our residents are retirement or going to be. State of Maine is number 4 in total tax burden compared to income in the United States, number 4. And recently, I believe the last thing that I've heard was 13% inflation. Oil was up, gas was up, groceries are up, properties are up. People are on fixed income. A lot of people. And, well, let's put it bluntly, we're all on a fixed income. We only have so much that comes in. We only have so much that can go out, and we have to balance our budgets. And the thing that you're going to see, our undesignated funds grew to an all-time high during COVID. It's now at an all-time high of $2 million in our undesignated fund. That's our emergency fund. The accountants came in for a meeting and they said the goal is to have 60 days in our emergency fund, and we have up over 100 days in our emergency fund. And those were collected during COVID when people and businesses were struggling. I think we need to spend that down and be careful. I think we need to talk about, have a discussion during the next budget cycle of what is the maximum we should be having in our emergency fund, because it sits there, you know, in the case of an emergency. And $2 million for a town of 2,500 is a lot of money. I know when a road was washed out during one of the recent storms, I think it was $50,000 that we had to pay to fix that, but $2 million is a lot. And we were talking about how much interest we've gotten on investing that money, but I'd rather more of that money be in the pockets of residents so that they can get some interest in their bank account. So I think there's a fine balance between budgeting and having an emergency fund, but also be very cognizant of how people are struggling and keeping them in their homes.
Okay, Eric, is there something online we should be bringing up? Or I can actually take a moment while you're thinking and ask if anybody in the hall here wants to ask some questions.
Clear online.
Huh?
We're clear online.
That means you don't have anything.
No comments yet.
No comment. Anybody here? I can't see you all, but if you have a question you'd want to raise right now, this is a good time. Otherwise, we can wait. Sure.
So just pictures worth 1,000 words.
Can you describe this, what you're passing out? Did you give one? Did you give one to Jared? Okay.
And you can see that it's a graph of the educational rank of.
Can you
public
describe it so the people at home know what you're talking about?
schools. Sure, it's a graph of where Maine ranks in terms of education amongst all 50 states from a period of from 1992 to 2022, so for 30 years.
Hey, Chris, you want to hold that up? Because the camera's actually on you. Just hold it right in front of you, like
The other way
over
around.
there,
No, at the
back there
podium.
at the podium, just so people can see. Turn around,
Face this way. The camera's
like
over
turn the
this way.
camera, face the camera. Thank you. Just so they can see what you're,
So it's, you know, even though you can't see the letters and everything, you can see very clearly the trend of the graph. In 1992, we were among the top 5 states in the nation. And in 2022, we're down to 40th. And in particular, in the last 3 or 4 years, from 2019 to 2022, there's a steep precipitous decline.
What's the metric? I missed the metric.
This is just a ranking of states in terms of education from 1 to 50.
In terms of spending on education
In terms
or?
of education, it was a holistic survey to
Okay.
assess what the quality of education was
Okay.
in the state and the public school
Okay,
system.
and you know, this is a select board candidates, right?
No, I understand.
Okay, great.
But one thing I'm going to ask is, you know, how, given the tremendous deterioration we saw in the last 3 to 4 years, with all the very questionable policies that were put in place, why would any citizen think, you know, yeah, we should probably reelect the people who made those decisions? It's sort of like a football coach who is in the playoffs and then wins no games saying that he wants an extension. So why shouldn't we have a fresh perspective, as somebody pointed out, or a fresh voice? And before you answer, I also just want to add, I think it's frankly laughable the way people stood up there and said that you're open to people giving feedback and you're open to people making comments, because I personally have had a really big problem with that. I'm not going to get into it here because it'll be pursued in court. But I was treated so poorly, specifically by Mr. Keegan, who talked about how
Can you
everybody's
keep
always
it-
open to an email or a phone conversation and told me basically to go take a hike when I
Chris,
sent you
can
an
you
email.
keep your comments more general?
Well, I think that people need to know about
Well,
individual members who
that-
really shouldn't be voted for.
Right, but
But
this
in
isn't,
terms of the incumbents, please tell me, and the challenger, why should anybody vote for somebody who presided over such a disastrous period of time for the education of our children?
okay, let me just rephrase your question because town of Readfield isn't necessarily responsible for your chart, but perhaps you can comment in the context of trends of effectiveness of education as you understand it as a select board candidate. We may have to ask the school committee the same question later, but for now, keep the question he's asked. He's given you a chart, shows a decline in something called education. Do you have any comment on how you feel that is a reflection on the town and what you think as a select board the town should be doing with respect to that? We'll start with Carol.
I have had the same concern for quite a while. My two daughters coming up through the ranks. One's brilliant and very clever, and one struggles tremendously in school. And we were approaching middle school, and she had the best elementary school teachers and specialists to get her as far as she could on track with, close to track with most of her peers. And I read the bulletin that comes out on the goals for next year of administrators. And the administrator at the middle school in black and white said her goal was to have 55% of the students on grade level in math and reading, 55%. And I had a special needs struggling student going into that school. And I said, if that's the goal, I'm pretty sure my child's not going to be in that 55%. The goal of any administrator should be 100% of our students need to be on grade level in math and reading. If you get 55%, okay, it was just very troubling that was the goal, meaning what we had was much lower than that. And we moved to Indiana because I said I cannot afford, we looked at all kinds of different schooling options because my daughter was not going to go there. Moved back to Indiana to help my mom stay in her house. Very strong academics there. We moved back for high school, but based on those words and at the time, the performance in that school, we left town for 3 years. We're back. The schools are stronger. Recently, we were 9th in the state of Maine on our performance, and the others were pretty much low, coastal schools. That's really pretty darn good. So Maine in general is not, stellar, but we are hanging right in there. And what troubled us when I was on the school board is we were making lots of cuts in teachers and ed techs and programs like gifted and talented and music and art and language. And it was a real struggle trying to balance good education and a lot of those classes that really resonate with certain students that struggle. So it's very difficult. I think the school budget was increased 7% this year, I believe. So it's very tough. And I think to attract new families going forward to this town, academics needs to be extremely strong. Our sports and our theater have a great reputation, but our academics have to stay strong.
Sean, same question. How, as a select board member, how would you want to encourage improvements as necessary with respect to schools and learning? This is not the school board, I know.
Yeah, so no, that's fine. I think we have great examples of that in our last election, there was someone that left, and so we had to appoint somebody from the community, and it made me take a deeper look at our school board in general. And when I looked, I saw the minimal group of actual educators involved in our school board. And so that's why I vocally nominated Patricia Clark to fill that seat, because of her vast experience in education and what she could bring to a board like this to support the needs of children and diversifying schooling and all those pieces. So that was the opportunity I had to impact the school board through my role in select board. And we continue to have conversations with them when we can. And if there is merit, we are We actively engage in their their budget process too. And we go and we ask our questions. And I think we're doing the pieces we can and continue to do so.
Okay, Jared, anything with respect to the schools that you would like to see promoted in terms of
So
improvement?
as I said in my intro, I was a private educator for 10 years. My mother was a public educator for 40 plus years. And I defer to the school board. They know way more than I'm ever going to know. They're going to be able to educate me on the education needs of our children. Even though I have experience in the field, I don't have experience in the public realm. That's a school board issue. So the select board has relatively limited ability to change what the school board does.
Any other questions from the board or from the floor or from the online? Steve? Well, Eric's looking. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, no, I'll shout it out.
Okay, good. Steve?
Hi, my name's Steve Woodson. I live in Kentsville, own a local business, former educator at the secondary and post-secondary level, Vietnam era veteran, special operations, almost 73 years old. But I want it known that I read at a 74-year-old level. So my mother's very proud of me. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. You're doing a great job. And by sitting where you are, you're setting yourselves up as a target, something I know a little bit about. And so I bridle a little bit when I hear personal attacks, especially in an area that you're not really responsible for. And especially from someone that didn't identify themselves when they came up to the microphone, and especially holding up a chart, and we have no idea where it came from, who generated it, what study it was a result of. Here in the state of Maine.
Steve, can you come back to the topic here?
Yeah.
Ask them a question because I
Yeah,
think we've addressed that.
So my main purpose is to clarify and ask you to clarify what role you have with regard to local education versus the role that the school board has and then the voters have in approving or not approving the school budget, regardless of your actions.
Okay, start with Sean then. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
So similar.
How do you influence school budgets if you do?
Yep. So I think it starts with our own voting. As residents of the town, we vote for the people we think should serve on the school board for us and represent our voices. It's taking opportunity as a citizen of Readfield, not as a select board member, but to attend school board meetings that have value and meaning to my life, and listening when we are invited as elected officials to those warrant meetings and talking about those budget meetings and talking about how will that impact the town's mill rate, how is it impacting our tax burden, and advocating for change that we see is a possible issue. So that is my take on the school board.
Thanks, Jared.
So for me, I think the only major opportunity that the select board has is what happened during the last term when someone resigns. And in that case, instead of going to the voters, it does go to the select board and they appoint someone to finish out that term. Short of that, it's up to the residents. It's their vote. They vote on the school budget. They vote on which candidates they prefer for the school board. All their meetings, just like the select board meetings, are public. Any resident is welcome to go to those and have their voice heard at those meetings. So the select board has very limited, just like I said last time, very limited authority over the school board.
Okay, Carol, I'll start with you. This will be the last question and then you can
Carol
do your
didn't
sum
get
up.
a chance to answer that one.
Pardon me?
Carol didn't answer that.
No, I
last
know,
question.
but I'm going to start with you next time. So go ahead. The same question.
Oh, that's fine. As a select board, it's hard. We do go to the meeting with the school board. I usually come with several questions, as always. And but I think as residents, we have a really big role. And I learned one thing I would like to ask of our school board representatives is if you can like let residents know more when there's something really big, like a big monumental change coming. I've learned from a school board member in Wayne a few years ago that they wanted to change the grading scale from A to F to 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's like, what are you talking about? That might really influence and change the future of some of our students. And I heard it from another town. And we packed the cafeteria and said that we were not in favor of that. I even went to the state house to talk about it at this school board. And I heard it again from a Wayne representative. They're talking about consolidating the elementary schools, which we talked about when I was on the school board very long ago, because it was really hard. There's a lot of duplication in all of our schools with all the different teachers and everything, a lot of duplication. And that's a very big challenge that we have going forward. That's going to be a giant discussion. But I know that they're starting that discussion, but I heard it elsewhere. So there are monumental things that people maybe need to know and maybe need to show up. So we would love for even the school board to maybe let us know. I don't know how you do that when something huge is coming, so we can have input.
Okay, so I'll start with Darren because I did start with Sean last time. This is I think the last question, but if you had somebody visiting here, walked in tonight and you wanted to walk them around, take them around the town, what would be the things that you would point out as a good reason for them to want to come here? As a select board member, what would you point out to them as the reasons to Readfield should be on their list to come to?
Yeah, I'd go back to open space. I'd take them to the town beach. I'd take them to the fairgrounds. I'd take them to the town forest. I'd take them to Dorsey Pond Nature Preserve. I think that's a really highlight of our town is the open spaces that we have. So that's a pretty easy question for me, I guess.
Okay. Carol, anything you'd take them around and show them that you'd be proud of, they should come to Readfield to live?
It's just beautiful. We have people from out of states just saying it's lovely, it's peaceful. The trails are extensive and very well managed, and we've got a lot of diversity in them and keep adding more. The beach, I would love to see that improved a little bit. It is our focal point, I think, but it is lovely to have that for residents and now with no charge. At a playground, I remember my daughter loved to swing, and she had a jacket that was dedicated to swinging on those swings because it had like rust marks on her elbows. So having a nice, safe place for kids to hang out would be really nice at the beach. The fairgrounds is going to be exciting. I think it's going to show our investment and our interest in families and kids and a safe place to play, and adults and kids all hanging out together and getting outdoors, getting the kids away from their electronics with things that they could do and gather safely in the fairgrounds. And the people, since we came to town 28 years ago, it's the people. It's been a bit of division in the last few years. I'm hoping everybody, and I see a huge improvement, people coming together and everybody getting back to talking to each other and walking down the street and supporting each other and all that. It's really the people.
Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, I would take them for a walk. I'd go up Main Street and I'd point out what we have. It's very easy to walk Main Street, go up into the trails, go to the fairgrounds, talk about this town. It's easy to talk about this town. I think everybody has a story like Carol's where they needed something and people show up in droves to support you, whether it be raking your lawn or, buying a pint of syrup. And so I think that those are really awesome pieces about our town and how they come together. So.
Okay, so we'll do unless there are more questions here, we'll I'm sorry, I can't see you behind the wall.
If you could announce here, can take comments on.
Okay, so before you start, sir, just want to point out to the people watching that we will take comments online. If you can type it in, Eric will summarize it for the panel. We'll be wrapping up in a few minutes though, so go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Marty Hanisch, Sturtevant Hill Road. I was listening carefully when Steve, our first gentleman, that's a joke, because his wife is the chief executive. When he commented on the educational statistics, I work a lot with statistics, and I teach statistics. And one thing that's I know is really, really important is definitions. And so I'd like to raise a question about the number of acres of open space in town. Some people are using a number of about 2,500 acres, other people 1,300 acres. And there's obviously a difference in definitions. So I'd ask the candidates, when we talk about open space, what definition, I don't want to get into the numbers, but what definition should we be using when we measure the open space in town, and whether we think that's enough open space, too much, or not enough?
Okay, thank you. Do you understand the question, the relative issues of open space? So Jared, why don't we start with you and then I can wrap up with Sean starting
Yeah,
next time.
certainly. So actually, as a member of the Conservation Committee, that's a question that I've been asking to be answered myself, because there is a lot of confusion on that. And I would like a defined term that the town does use for open space, because it is a very, very broad general term that can include a lot of things, or it can be narrowed and not include a lot of things. So that's a question that I've been asking for. That's one of the reasons I want to be on the Open Space Committee, is because they are the committee that should define that. They are the ones who say this qualifies as open space, this does not qualify as open space. Here are the reasons why.
So before we move on, let me just ask you,
Yes.
are there lesser definitions of lesser terms that also need to be defined, or is there one definition, open space, that covers everything? Is that the
So
generic?
open space would be the generalized, very broad term.
Right.
And then you can get into community open space, you can get to the legal definition of open area. There's a lot of different ways you can cut that cake.
Okay.
So I would like a definition myself. That's one thing that I've been
Okay.
asking for. Now that we have an open space plan committee in the process of being formed, they would be the appropriate committee to help define that. And it hopefully will include several definitions. It won't be just open space is this. It'll be open space is this, but community open space is this. The legal definition of open area is this. So it does take the confusion out of it for a lot of people, because there is a lot of confusion on it.
Okay, Carol, anything you can add to the definitions or statistics in the town of variations of open space?
I asked what is open space for a very long time, because when I started, it was hidden in a list of 13 expenditures and capital improvements. On my watch, I saw it go from $10,000 a year, and in 1 year it jumped to $50,000 a year. And it's like, what is this that just increased by 5? And I wasn't getting a good answer. I come to find out that LL Bean started it years ago so that we don't get too condensed. If you drive anywhere outside of the Four Corners and maybe the depot in any direction, and you look to the left and you look to the right, we're not condensed. We have giant properties and fields and farms and a lot of open space. I don't think we're at risk of becoming condensed or a concrete jungle. I'm the one that came up with the 2,500 acres list. And Darren, I can give this to you. How I got this, one morning in about 30 minutes, I went on the town website and it does list the properties. And it's everything from all of our trails. It has a lot of donated properties, because we've had very, very generous people that have donated properties to the town. It has, I think we have 8 cemeteries, and that is also included. And people are saying, well, we shouldn't count like Kennebec Land Trust because whatever. It's open space. It's listed on our town website. And taking $50,000 per year out of the taxpayers to put over here for an undefined use. If something's in the budget, I would love to point at it and go, your tax dollars went to that. And open space was just this loose thing that now has $116,000 in it and went up fivefold on my watch. There was no discussion. We didn't have a
So
vote.
just to summarize what you're saying in terms of his question, you have some list of things that you think qualify, but there's
Yep.
no standard in the community as to what would be.
Well, it's on the town website and it
Right.
was 2,439 acres.
Okay, good.
And you can dice it any way, but I don't think Readfield is at risk of becoming cluttered and condensed. We're pretty darn lucky to have a lot of open space and we have lots and lots of trails and cemeteries to upkeep in a town of 2,500. Can we afford to take
Okay, you're going,
properties out?
I'm just going to stop you because you're going away from his question, which was what's the metric? So we'll come back to that. Sean, anything on how they calculate or what do you think the open space as defined might total?
Yeah, similarly to Jaren, I'm excited about the formation of this committee to define it because the list, some lists have private property that the town has no right over listed on that. And so I want to know how that impacts any planning going forward. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that group does and how they can define it for the town and the use of the funds that have already been collected.
Okay, great. So we're going to wrap up here. I started with Carol. So we'll start with Sean. Whatever you want to do to wrap up why you be the candidate people should vote for, one of the two positions.
Yeah, I think that over the last 3 years, I've been a very equal player on the board and somebody that is approachable to discuss any topic on any level. I think that there are times where I might not have an answer or something might be out of our purview, and I apologize that there's nothing more we can do at that point. But if you have an opportunity to talk to me, I think you'll see that I'm pretty fair. I listen. I want to help positive change where we can, and I just want to keep going. I feel like I just learned enough to make a motion, so I'd like to keep making some.
Okay, Jaren?
Yeah, if you didn't get a question answered or you think of something afterwards that tends to be how I am, contact me. I'm happy to answer any of your questions that you guys have. If I didn't explain something in the detail that you want, please reach out. My contact information is very easy to find. And I want you to vote. I'm not going to ask you to vote for me. I'm going to ask you to vote for the two candidates that you think should serve on the board. If I'm one of them, great. If I'm not, I'm okay with that too. But I do want you to vote either way. That's my big message is vote regardless for the two that you want.
Thank you, Darren. Carol, anything final you would like to say?
Yep, I've learned an awful lot in the last 3 years. I enjoy representing the residents. My goals are sensible spending, promote small business. When I got on the select board, I went on the town website to the businesses and there were 70 small businesses listed there. And I thought, how can that be? I've been in town 28 years. It's because they're hidden and they're in houses and homes and on back roads and people's garages. And I did whatever I could to kind of promote small business with Small Business Saturday and putting ads at the post office. And I think anything we can do to promote small business would be really wonderful, improve communication with residents and ensure that all residents are treated fairly. I will listen. I will ask questions. I will answer questions to the best of my ability, and I'm very eager to learn what's on residents' minds. Appreciate your vote.
Well, thanks to you all. I think I learned in the last 3 minutes that you have a hidden project going on in this community. Nobody knows what open space is, and that would be a good thing to resolve. It seems like it doesn't take a lot of work, but somebody can define it and get that work. You'll all be a step ahead. Appreciate you running for your positions. I wish you the best of luck, and I'm glad the community has a forum like this.
Thank you.
I think we'll end